Uh, Man, where do we even start with this? You know, LSU recently lost to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, that program of all people, even though we're in a different era of college football, they lost to Vanderbilt 31-24. Um, it wasn't just an upset. It was pretty bad. And it was kind of shocking to me that LSU was an underdog heading into this game. Who would have thought in over 100 years you would hear the words LSU being an underdog to Vanderbilt of all teams? But we're here now, you know, because this was supposed to be the year LSU finally um, made the playoffs under Brian Kelly. They have not done that since he arrived to Baton Rouge after the 2021 season because the talent is there. The NIL money has been spent. They're more committed to NIL. The roster's loaded, but instead, we're sitting here talking about another letdown and another wave of hot seat rumors surrounding Brian Kelly once again. So this video, we're breaking down what went wrong, what it means for LSU's future, and whether Brian Kelly's tenure could already be reaching a breaking point. All right. So let's start with the basics, though. LSU came into this game ranked number 10 in the country, facing Vanderbilt, a Vanderbilt squad they've dominated whenever they played. They beat them last year in Baton Rouge. But things have changed a little bit. Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year. This year, even though they lost to Alabama, they played them pretty close. It was a real close game, you know. And had leading going into this game, LSU had, you know, I believe it was 11 wins against Vanderbilt. Been pretty dominant over that program. But that didn't go that way. LSU looked out of sync from the opening drive. Offense sputtered. The defense gave up a chunk of big plays, and by the time the game was over, Vanderbilt put off one of the biggest upsets in the SEC this season. Now I know some of y'all may not view it as an upset, but I do because of the players, the program of LSU's caliber, the money spent on NIL on that roster. You shouldn't have lost this game, but you did. And now LSU is sitting at 5-2, teetering on the edge of playoff elimination, and the pressure is on Brian Kelly to get the job done. But the way it's looking, the optics, are telling me that he may not be able to get it done. But we'll see. They got the talent to get it done, but I don't know if it's going to get done. You know. So let's talk about you know what actually is happening on the field because this team it don't lack talent. We all know that, but it doesn't reflect. The offense is ranked 12 in the SEC, averaging just 366 yards per game. That ain't gonna cut it in the SEC. It's not. On the offensive coordinator, Joe Sloan, the Tigers have struggled to find rhythm or identity. It's been this way since Mike Denbrock left for Notre Dame. That offense has not gotten right ever since Jane Daniels left. They've got a quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, guy who drove for over 4,000 yards last year. He has clearly regressed as a quarterback. Leading up to the season, there were talks about Nussmeier being a first round NFL draft pick, a top five pick, the number one pick, Heisman Trophy candidate. All that stuff is pretty much out the window right now. Through 7 games this year, Nussmeier, is sitting at over 1,600 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's not bad, but for a quarterback that had a lot of people had a lot of hopes for Heisman hopes, that ain't gonna cut it. That's kind of underwhelming, you know. And that's where the conversation that started though. Not just from the fans, from the insiders. People are starting to wonder about Joe Sloan in his days as an offensive coordinator. Are they numbered? Are they coming to the end? You know. But according to in this article right here, I pulled up from Pro Football and Sports Network (PFSN). They're saying that CBS Sports Chris Hammer um revealed that LSU makes a change, it might not start with Brian Kelly. Well, not immediately. Instead, it could begin with a coordinator shakeup, and that's what I think is going to happen. It's going to be that scapegoat hiring, firing first. Then you see what Brian Kelly does, and if that fails, then they may go after Brian Kelly and fire him. But that buyout is a monster though. But here's the thing though, coordinator swaps only go so far. LSU has already overhauled its staff, spent heavily in the portal, and built one of the best, recruiting pipelines in the country. That's facts right there. The next step, if things don't improve, is the one nobody wants to talk about, and that's a head coach right now. But I don't think he's going to go anywhere. So is Brian Kelly losing the backlog? Is he losing the backing of the LSU boosters? Because according to these reports, that might be already that might already be happening. We'll see though. You know, because CBS Sports Joe Telty recently pointed out that Kelly doesn't have the strongest relationship with some of the heavy hitters behind LSU athletics, according to what he says. You know, um, that's a problem though, because schools like LSU, the booster support is every day. It just is. And you got to remember that buyout for Brian Kelly is over $53 million if LSU fires him without cause. He's got 7 years left on that 10-year deal. That 10-year deal worth over $95 million at the time of the signing. But the big money has to stop LSU before though. Ed Orgeron was gone less than 2 years after winning the national championship. Les Miles was shown the door after two early losses. Remember the loss against Auburn? They fired him. Then he had that loss against Wisconsin, a few games prior. So they let him go. But Kelly, he has built some goodwill, and but that could be fading fast. And the boosters, a lot of people probably getting restless right now. I know the fan base is because I've seen it all throughout social media since Saturday, since the game transpired on Saturday. People are fed up with Brian Kelly. I'm talking content creators, YouTubers, bloggers, everybody in the LSU atmosphere is does not like Brian Kelly right now. But this is what things can get interesting at though. For me, in regards to the situation, LSU still got to face Texas A&M. They still got to play Alabama, and then you got Oklahoma. If you win out, the conversation changes completely. Kelly saves face. the Tigers maybe sneak into the playoffs. They most likely will get into the playoffs if you run the table and beat all three of those programs. I think you're safe. Me, in my opinion. But if they lose two of those, if this offense continues to stall, then we're talking about, I think on the offensive side of football, I think they will revamp that coaching staff on the offensive side, starting with Hankins and Sloan. Um, Probably let the offensive line coach go as well because that's been a huge, factor in why things are going the way it's going right now. You know, so I think if anything, I think Joe Sloan will probably get fired. He'll get relief of his duties along with Hankins, Brad Davis, the O line coach. That entire offensive staff will probably get relieved of their jobs, and they'll probably go after a new offensive coordinator to run that offense. So that's how I see it playing out. But at the end of the day, the loss to Vanderbilt wasn't just about one game. It was about the direction of the entire program. You know, you've got the talent, you've got the resources, you've got the most passionate fan base in college football. But something is missing, man. Since Brian Kelly has come to LSU, it has clearly not, been what we thought, a lot of people thought it was going to be. A lot of people thought he was going to be the next, the second coming of Nick Saban. And that has not happened. In that first year, it was looking like that, but then you had the year Dan Daniels when the Heisman, but the defense was bad. Some people still felt as though this team was heading in the right direction, but now it's kind of stagnant right now. So we'll see how it all play out, man. But I don't think Kelly goes anywhere right now. I don't think he gets the buyout to go anywhere, but to get fired. I think right now, if this continues, and I think I would say a 90% chance that it will, because I don't know if they could beat out of the three that I mentioned, out of Oklahoma, A&M, and Bama. I think Oklahoma's a team that it could beat. I don't know if they can beat A&M this upcoming week, and I really don't think they can beat Alabama because Alabama right now is just playing on a different level right now. And you don't know how that game could be for LSU in the past. Alabama is pretty much LSU has gotten their wins over Alabama, but Alabama knows how to play LSU. You know how that can get, how ugly that can get. So we'll see. But these next few weeks will define not just LSU season, but the future of this entire coaching staff. And if Saturday night in Nashville, the last Saturday in Nashville was any indication, changes might already be coming. But I do think changes will be coming to the staff after this season. I really do. So we'll see how it all play out. Give me a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you're an LSU fan, leave your thoughts below in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Do you want to get rid of Brian Kelly right now, or do you think they should make changes on the offensive side? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm out. Peace.